guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about dangers, threats, and risks of retirement travel.
Yeah, there's a lot that can go wrong when you're doing retirement travel. You're leaving your home country, you're traveling all over the world. Lots of things to look out for and prepare for and kind of mitigate ahead of time. So let's jump in. We got a list here of things that could happen. The first one is going to be visa issues, and this is really a kind of self-inflicted thing if you don't keep up with the visas, because they do change so regularly. They're changing basically in most countries every year that we go to. People are making changes to the visas, and you do have to stay on top of it. They'll go from giving you a 30-day tourist visa to a 90-day or cutting it back. And if you're not sure what you're going to do, you're going to go to a country, get in there and realize you can't stay as long as you need to, and then you'll have to leave in order to come back, if they'll let you back in.
Exactly. And you know, the big thing is, that is a huge thing, is kind of understanding like what your situation is visa-wise with your passport. Which passport do you have? And what do I need when I'm going to XYZ country? You have to look it up. Just because you think, oh, I've got a strong passport, I can go anywhere I want. Okay, that's not really the case. Sometimes you have to apply for a visa ahead of time, and you have to figure out how far ahead of time do I do this, and what information do I put in? Is it easy to get? Is it hard to get? You know, and like Rob said, they change often. So you just really have to make a plan, because it could really put a real damper on your travel. And you could also lose a lot of money in the process too, because if you had plans to go somewhere and you've already paid for tickets and housing and tours and all that kind of stuff, and then you can't get in, you lose all of that most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have, over the years, kind of got relationships with some visa companies in some of these countries, because there are times you'll run into an issue and you'll just need someone to help you, or you'll just want someone to help you. And maybe your situation will change, because we recently just turned 50, both of us, and now we're able to look into retirement visas in some countries, and so that has been a change for us. So you may need to look at how things change as you age as well. So this is a big thing. It is a danger if you're not prepared. You know, if you're just starting out and you're just traveling the country, if you're from the US like us, most countries you can go to without securing a visa ahead of time. The two big ones that we needed to get one for were India and Vietnam. But there are problems in getting those sometimes, and you do have to be aware. We have run into problems ourselves.
This is why I'm chuckling. You know, the other thing too is people think to themselves, oh, well, I'm going to be traveling in Europe and that's easy. I understand those rules. Sure. However, there are still countries adding into Schengen zone. So even things like that are shifting as well. So if you made plans and you said, oh, well, I'm going to hop out of Schengen and I'm going to go to this country because they're not Schengen. And then by the time you do the whole thing, they've been added to Schengen zone, and now your whole trip is messed up. So it's not just, you know, traveling in Asia or places like that. It's also, you know, traveling in Europe as well.
All right, so the next one's going to be, the next threat's going to be safety issues. And there are going to be safety issues in a lot of places, not everywhere. And it's interesting because over the years we've been traveling, we have come into some pretty big safety issues and had some situations that we really don't want to get into again. And as we've gotten older, we've realized that safety is more important to us, not because we feel like we need to be safer, but because we just don't feel like dealing with the situations that arise in some countries. And we've heard that from other people too in Bangkok that are saying, at the end of the day, I ended up just going to Asia because I just want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with, well, can I go out at night? And should I go down this street? Should I go down that street? When you're in Asia, when you're in Japan, you don't deal with really any of that. And that is why people end up coming here. It's a good place to go if you're tired of it. Because we have had some pretty rough situations in some countries where there was an attack and we got locked down in our hotel. Just different things like that happen to you. And that's just something as we go along on this path, we get less and less inclined to do.
Yeah, that is the thing, as you get older, that's one thing you don't want to have to check off your list, like, okay, what time do I need to be back by so that I'm safely back in, my apartment or my hotel in such and such place. It's that ease, when you're doing retirement travel, you want it to be somewhat comfortable too, and not having to worry about your safety is a huge thing. And not just together, but I like to do things by myself as well sometimes, and I'll go out and meet a friend for coffee, or meet a friend for dinner, or go do something, or take a class. And it doesn't matter when I'm in certain places. I don't care what time it's at, because I know that it's not a problem. But in some countries, you're like, well, what time does it over? And is there going to be somebody there to pick me up exactly when it's done, so I don't have to wait around by myself? And just something you don't want to have to think about.
Yeah, I think I'd say that also we're happy that we went to all the countries that do have some safety issues first. Not first, but in the first year or two of our traveling, because we did that while we were younger. And now when we think about it, we're like, I'm too tired. I don't want to go back there again. So it's something to think about, the order you're going to do these. If you save some of those countries with safety issues till the end, you may just decide, I don't want to do them at all. So if you really want to go earlier in your travels. Next one's going to be medical issues. And this is a threat, because people may not know where they can go to get stuff done, or they may just be fearful of the fact that they can't get stuff done, and that's kind of an overblown fear.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. I know specifically for Americans, as Americans, that's probably the one thing that most people asked us about when we said what we intended on doing was, well, what are you going to do, if something happens, and insurance and all this stuff. The health aspect of it was a huge concern for anyone that we told what our plans were before we left. And it really has been the least of our concerns in our travels, because we have had things come up, and even just doing like regular things, like just regular yearly exams and just some simple dental work and things like that, it's been easier than having to do it at home and going through insurance and having to get things approved and all that stuff. It hasn't really been a huge risk. And this is from someone who had some serious surgery done in a foreign country.
Yeah, it is not as bad as you would think it would be, because there's kind of a two-tiered system in a lot of the world, where there is a place where everyone goes if you're on insurance from the country, and then there's doctors that you would pay for out of pocket, and that's the ones that we're going to, but they're not as busy as they would be in America, where everyone is going to the same doctor. And so you can call up and just get an appointment for like the next day. You can go have a tooth taken care of. You can go have surgery. She had a surgery done in Malaysia. We called up. Surgery, she was out of surgery a week later. And that's like unheard of. We visited a hospital here in Bangkok and got in a day. And it's just like, there's so much available to you, and the doctors are so well trained. They speak English. It's just not a problem, and it's just something that is really overblown, and I don't think it's as big of a threat or risk as people might think. The next one's going to be financial issues. These are also going to be self-inflicted, and this could go either way. You could do really well with finances. Now, we've done really well with our finances since we started traveling. We've ended up realizing that in the U.S. we were spending around $8,000 a month, and the rest of the world we're spending $4,000 a month. And the reason for that is we don't have car payments, we don't have car insurance, we don't have HOA fees, we don't have all these things that we used to have. But there are people doing retirement travel who are doing it wrong, and they're super inefficient, and they go places that are super expensive at the wrong time of year, and they go from continent to continent and kind of zigzag back and forth, and that's just a bad way to do it.
Yeah, I think it's a huge factor. You can, like you said, it's self-inflicted when you don't plan properly. And I think that's probably the big key thing there is not planning properly is going to cost you money. Not just the visa issues we talked about earlier, but it is going to cost you money if you plan to be somewhere and you don't know, oh, this particular country has tons of summer festivals, music festivals that people go to. Probably shouldn't go there in the summertime then, because it's going to cost you so much money to do that. Unless that's like a dream and you've always wanted to do that and you want it for the experience, then absolutely. But for the love of all things, don't continue to go there every summer if it's not something you're even interested in, because you're overpaying for absolutely no reason. So things like that can end up costing you a lot. Picking the wrong housing in some places and overpaying and not paying attention to what you're, choosing, or, having to bail out of things or whatever. It's just going to cost you a lot more money. Same thing with not being financially efficient with, paying for like flights and things like that. So, bringing in points and bringing some of those into the mix to help you kind of tame down your financial kind of forecast.
The next threat is going to be your banking situation. And we're from the U.S., so we can really only speak about U.S. banks. But there are some banks that are better than others. And, you need to make sure your bank is going to support you overseas. Make sure your credit card is going to support you overseas. We're not really talking about Amex versus Visa versus MasterCard, because that's all fine. You really need to have 4 to 5 credit cards anyway, so it doesn't matter if you have 1 or 2 of them Amex cards. A lot of people say, well, Amex isn't accepted everywhere, and it's probably not accepted as much as the other cards, but you're going to have a bunch of cards anyway. What we're talking about is your bank not supporting you with international fees, exchange rates, and actually not even wanting you to have an account if you don't have the right kind of address back home. So you need to check with your bank and make sure that they're going to let you do this the way that you want to do it.
Yeah, and actually these are all things that we talk about in our retirement travel jumpstart course. And a lot of these things you mentioned earlier, like visa agents and that type of stuff, these are all, we have something called our trusted friends list that's in the retirement travel jumpstart course. And we put in there all of the information to contact some of these people that we've interacted with and had great experiences with, so that you don't have to go through the trouble of trying to track down somebody who is reputable and you can trust. Because just like at home, anywhere else, there are people who are not there for the right reasons, and they know you have money and they figure, hey, I can get some extra money out of these people. But these are our trusted friends, and we've put them together in this list in our course just to make things easier for those who are really trying to do this and trying to reduce, the threats and the risks that there are with retirement travel.
All right, the next one is going to be the risk of not being able to help loved ones when they are in need. And it's a big deal. It's a big thing for a lot of people. What would you say to not being able to help family and friends who need you?
Yeah, it's challenging because, again, you plan things out and things come up with family members. I mean, we have several friends who have been in these situations, from, losing a family member suddenly to illnesses of family members. And it's difficult because at the end of the day, it is something that is going to happen at one time or another to all of us. And it's one of those things where, like, you feel terrible because you're so far away usually, and it's just hard to, it's one of those things that you kind of mentally really just have to prepare for and know that at some point it is going to happen. And we've always kind of had an emergency fund, and it's always important to have something like that because it is going to cost you financially. It's going to be worth it because you're going to be with somebody that you love and help them, take care of them or whatever. But it's important that you understand that this is something that is going to happen.
Yeah, we had this issue happen 2020, obviously, we were in Malaysia in March of 2020, and we stayed in Malaysia for a long time because we couldn't leave. And it was pretty difficult thinking back, because there were some people that needed our help, needed us, and we were able to help them in other ways, but we could not leave physically where we were for several months. So those things are unexpected, and you can't plan for them, and that's just going to be life. And you know what? The end of it was that everybody got through it, and that's just the way it's going to be. I don't think it's a worthwhile thing to worry about every little situation like that could come up, because if you do that, there's no way we could have predicted in 2019 what was going to happen in 2020. And so there was no possible way to even be prepared for that. And so I just don't think it's worth worrying about, other than having an emergency fund set aside, and other than that saying, you know what, look, we love you, we're going to do the best that we can.
Exactly. I just, these dangers, threats, and risks, we talk about these types of things because, retirement travel isn't just, rainbows and butterflies. Sure, a large portion of your time is going to be rainbows and butterflies, but there are definitely these important things to think about and to take into consideration. If you're interested in the course I mentioned earlier, Retirement Travel Jumpstart, the link to that is down below in the description, as well as some other resources for you as well. If you have questions, leave those down in the comment section. Guys, if you enjoyed us, give us a like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.